care how late you stay out. Stay out as late as you want. You want to borrow the new car? You want to borrow my credit card? Kids today, they really have it rough.
I have no idea where we are or where we're going.
I mean, when I was their age, life was easy. Super easy. Why haven't you gotten a tattoo yet? How come you don't have any piercings yet?
Yep, we're lost. We are completely lost.
Ooh, sports.
Just do whatever the mechanic says to do.
Vehicle maintenance is completely overrated.
Look, whatever the mechanic is asking, just pay him. Pay him whatever he wants.
I wish they had soap operas at night. I like that boy. You should date him. You should date him immediately.
Well, what about the creepy guy with the motorcycle? He's cute.
Yeah, sure. Spring break in Tahiti sounds fun. Hey, make sure you get all your video games done before you start your homework. You don't have to pass all your classes.
What? You have a project due tomorrow and you've known about it for 4 weeks and you haven't started yet? Sweet!
Doesn't anybody want to know if we're there yet?
Remember, if you need anything between midnight and 4 a.m., please come wake me up. Hey, I'm on the phone. Could you bring the baby over and let him climb all over me?
Hey, can you please turn that music up?
Well, we just stopped for lunch 10 minutes ago, but yeah, let's stop again. I never have trouble with my toddler.
I never have trouble with my teenagers.
I never have trouble with my adult children.
You know, she's right. We are ruining her life.
Yes, more homework to correct.
All right, whining.
Yay, tantrums.
Vomit.
We just really need to spoil these kids more.
Sorry, buddy. I don't know any good jokes at all. You're 16. You pretty much know everything now. I think 18's a great age to get married.
Okay, remember, make sure you turn on all the lights before you leave the house.
Hey, could you leave the front door open for a couple hours? Thanks.
Whoa! Money really does grow on trees.
Hey, LCC family, happy Father's Day for myself and the Kaisers. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you with us, and I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible so that you can get to all the deliciousness that your loved ones have planned for you today. Real quick, just want to go over some announcements. This Friday, we had 30 hygiene packs come in to partner with the Gospel Rescue Mission so that whenever people come in need, and that's one of the great needs in the homeless community and the transient community as they travel through, is just getting those basic hygiene things. And just thank you for being a part of something that is going to ensure that people are hearing the gospel and the love of Jesus Christ, even in the midst of their lack, in the midst of even suffering. And so thank you for that. And thank you for the Bibles as well. Love putting the Bibles in the pack. Really excited about that. And just 14 more days till we open the doors of LCC again. And just let me reassure you, church, we are doing everything we can when it comes to disinfecting, social distancing, having signage, having masks, having disinfectants, and all those things in place to ensure that you have the safest experience on Sunday that is possible. And it is very possible for you to come to church and get out of your vehicle and walk in, and the only surface that you touch would be your chair that has been previously disinfected. And so I think you can have faith that we are doing everything we can to ensure that there is a safe atmosphere for you on the 5th of July. So really excited about that. Of course, you are invited. We're going to have an RSVP process through Flocknote that you can respond to let us know if you're going to be there on Sunday, so we make sure that we have a place for you, because we only have availability for 57 people within the worship center, and I believe it's going to be somewhere around 17 to 20 for the kids area. The kids area won't be open until the 12th at the earliest, but we will keep you posted on that. And as you continue to be faithful in attending and being a part of LCC, just being a part of the chat room, just right down here in this bottom, your bottom right corner, it's just an amazing part to just connect. One of the things I loved about Friday is just seeing people just be so happy and getting to see a familiar face even though that face was covered with a mask. And so I'm just believing that the 5th of July is going to be a powerful moment, and that we are going to be able to worship in spirit and truth. And I am looking forward to it. And I am looking forward to just continuing to follow through on the guidelines, continuing to grow, and continue to see what we can do to have the maximum amount of people that we can within the church until the guidelines are lifted. And so just continue to support through your giving, the 3 ways to give, through mail. You can also use online, and you can use text to give. That information is down in the notes section on the online church board. And so just be a part, continue to be a part of what we're doing. And as you are faithful, we are going to be able to increase our influence in the community and the voice that Jesus has to reach those who are lost. And so thank you for being a part of that. Really excited about the future. And don't forget that today is the Father's Day giveaway. And what we want to do for Father's Day is I have $100 worth of prime rated Angus beef from Chicago Steak Company that I will deliver to your door. Now, of course, some of the the rules are you have to live here in town. I can't deliver steaks to all over the country, but I have the steaks with me, and I will deliver them in a box certified by Chicago Steak Company to the door. And so it could be your dad, it could be your father-in-law, it could be your husband, it could be a man in the church that has just showed their importance in investing in God's kingdom. We want to honor that and be a part of that. And so be on the lookout for names as they're nominated, and just know that those people who are nominated will go into a random drawing, draw 2 names, and those 2 names will get the blessings of amazing steak. And has Father's Day ever tasted so good? I'm a little jealous that I can't have a prime rated steak. I don't know if I've ever had one in my life. And so you'll have to let me know how it is. And so we'll be back in just a few minutes. Enjoy the worship, connect with Jesus, connect with God's throne, and just look forward to being together again. Look forward to seeing you face to face rather than my face to a camera, to your computer or your phone. And that way, just love you guys. Just continue to pray for the church, continue to pray for the Kaisers, and continue to invest in Life Community Church so that we can fulfill the calling. Remember, we are going to do big things for God, but it's going to take our faithfulness to make sure that it happens. I love you guys, and I'll see you in just a few minutes.
Sing together. I'm leaning on the everlasting arms that place me on the rock that stands, and I hold true to the one who breaks my fall and lifts me time and time again. Oh my God, so good, you never give up. You never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love for me. Oh my God, so good. You never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love for me. Hey! Freedom in Him. This freedom purchased by the highest price. This grace outweighing all my shame. Hey. 'Cause I'm made new through the power of sing, as we lift up the name of Jesus, I want you to make it loud. Be an example for your children, or just to lift it up with everything you've got. Just sing it out. I'm not a slave. Come on. Sing it. I'm not a slave to sin, so I'm singing. You are good. Come on. Buried with Christ to rise in your freedom. You are good. When you make a promise, Jesus, you keep it. You are good. So I praise your name as long as I'm breathing. As you are. Shout it out! Yeah, I'm not a slave to sin, so I'm singing. You are good. Buried with Christ to rise in your freedom. You are good, yeah. When you make a promise, Jesus, you keep it. You are good. So I'll praise your name as long as I'm breathing. You are good, yeah. Hey. Oh my God, so good. You never give up. Come on, never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love for me. Hey, oh my God, so good. Oh, you never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love for me. Oh my God, so good. You never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love for me. Oh my God, so good. You never give up on me. Oh, what joy I found because of your love for me. I'm not a slave to sin, so I'm singing. You are good. Buried with Christ to rise in your freedom. You are good, yeah. When you make a promise, Jesus, you keep it. You are good. So I'll praise your name as long as I'm breathing. And you are good, yeah. Oh, you are good in every season, every moment, every hour. You are faithful to the end. You are beginning. You are a stronghold. You are who we stand firm on. It's Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Yeah. Hey. Oh, we thank you, Lord. Yeah. We sing that again together. I'm not a slave. That is the truth. We sing to you, Jesus. Singing, I'm not a slave to sin, so I'm singing. You are good. Buried with Christ to rise in your freedom. You are good. When you make a promise, Jesus, you keep it. You are good. So I'll praise your name as long as I'm breathing. Yes. Put these words on your heart. Come on. Yeah, I'm not a slave to sin, so I'm singing. You are good. Buried with Christ to rise in your freedom. You are good. When you make a promise, Jesus, you keep it. You are good, yeah. So I'll praise your name as long as I'm breathing. You are good, yeah. Yes, God, you are so good. You are so good to us.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
I once was lost, but now I'm found.
Was blind, but now I see.
Now see.
where are you? Where is your sting? How sweet the sound of this victory. Oh church, where are you? Come rise and sing. How sweet the sound of our victory. Oh death, where are you? Where is your sting? How sweet the sound of this victory. Oh church, where are you? Come rise and sing. How sweet the sound of our victory. Oh death, where are you? Where is your sting? How sweet the sound of this victory. Oh church, where are you? Come rise and sing. How sweet the sound of our victory. Oh death, where are you? Where is your sting? How sweet the sound of this victory. Oh church, where are you? Come rise and sing. How sweet the sound of our victory. When we've been there for 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we know less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Oh death, where are you? Where is your sting? How sweet the sound of this victory. Oh church, where are you? Come rise and sing. How sweet the sound of our victory. Oh death, where are you? Where is your sting? How sweet the sound of this victory. Oh church, where are you? Come rise and sing. How sweet the sound of our victory. Oh death, where are you? Where is your sting? How sweet the sound of this victory. Oh church, where are you? Come rise and sing. How sweet the sound of our victory. Oh death, where are you? Where is your sting? How sweet the sound of this victory. Oh church, where are you? Come rise and sing. How sweet the sound of our victory.
Lord, I just want to thank you that you were able to minister to us even in these times whenever we were apart. And God, I just pray for today's service, Lord. I just pray for all the dads, all the husbands, all the men that are being courageous for your kingdom. Lord, I pray that you just bless them and minister to them today. Pray that they're encouraged. And Lord, I pray that they know that they are recognized for all the sacrifices, Lord, and all the faithfulness and all the hard work. Lord, I pray that they realize and recognize that we are thankful for them. And we ask this and we say this in Jesus' name. Amen. Guys, so excited. I love Father's Day because I usually get a dessert of my choosing and a meal of my choosing. And I usually don't have to make those. And so one of my favorite meals are meals that I don't have to cook. And so if you're wondering what my favorite meal is a meal that I don't have to cook. And so I just want to just welcome everybody. Happy Father's Day, whether it is through birth, whether it's adoption, fostering, or you're a spiritual father to people within the church and people in your community. We just want to celebrate you and thank you for being a part of LCC and being the steadfast presence and foundation, one of the foundations in your family. And so thank you for that. And we just want to honor you. And Father's Day is a little bit of a weird day for me. I've never really felt like I could truly celebrate Father's Day. Whenever I was a kid, I dreamed of having a dad. And I'm not saying that I didn't have a dad. I knew who my dad was. I knew, basically where he was. I had a stepdad that was present in my life. And, for about 2 years, my mom was a single mom and trying to single mom stuff. And I have a lot of respect for single moms, but it's not like I didn't know my dad or know where he was. But I just always dreamed of having the type of dad that I could be proud of, the type of dad that I would have pride in. I can remember moments whenever my friends would be talking about their dads taking them hunting or doing all these first-time activities. And I can remember being in circles in elementary school as kids were talking about things they did with their dad and just how awesome their dad was. And I would just stand there and I would make up stories. I would just make up these wild stories about, why my dad, was away and wasn't in town and why I never saw him. And it was just, even at a young age, I just recognized this big emptiness in my life. And so, when other people would talk about their church, their dad and that stuff, me making up stories, it was always this desire to have that perfect dad, to have that dad that, the old TV show type dad, the perfect dads in movies, just all these representations that I saw in entertainment of dads, and then having, cousins where I thought, man, their dad is awesome, and just people in the church just always had that desire. And one of the cool things about about having the parable series is there's literally a parable for every situation. And guess what? It's Father's Day, and there's a parable for the perfect dad. And in Luke chapter 15, we see, as always, there's the same three crowds surrounding Jesus. Of course, his followers and his disciples were always nearby. And then there was sinners, and some of the translations that you use, like words like degenerates and deplorables and sinners and weirdos. Like, you can use all these words with a group of people that also followed Jesus. And then, of course, there was the religious elite, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they were always there waiting to judge Jesus, waiting for him to say or do something that they could persecute him for. And so in Luke 15, with verse 1 in the NLT, it says, tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and teachers of the religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. And what did we talk about last week? How Jesus was called the friend of sinners, and it wasn't a positive context, it was something negative. And so these were moments whenever Jesus realized the error of people's thoughts and the errors of their hearts. Because remember, Jesus knew the hearts of man. And so he would know when their thoughts were going against God and going against the teachings that they knew and could repeat to you in the Bible. And so parables, remember, are these short stories revealing our lack of understanding or just outright sin that's in our lives, that we are never the hero. So when you're reading a parable, don't think of yourself as the hero, like, oh, that's me, the Bible's talking about me in that moment. Now, you might have times whenever you are the hero, but it's whenever we are being Christ-like that we are the hero. And so just know that Jesus and God are always the heroes in the parables, and those who accepted those teachings, who listened to those parables, gained understanding of not just the Bible, but the attitude and heart of God and the desires of Jesus himself. And so here's a moment where Jesus has these three crowds around him again, and the judgment in their hearts and minds start to occur as they are gathered. And so Jesus begins to tell parables, and he tells this first parable, the parable of the lost sheep. And I think everybody knows this. There was a shepherd who had 100 sheep, and Jesus says, does not that shepherd leave the 99 to go find the one? And when he does find it, he celebrates and is more happy and more joyous that he found the one sheep than the 99 that didn't need rescuing. And then he goes into another parable in Luke chapter 15, and he says the parable of the lost coin. And he says, if a woman has 10 coins and she loses one, will she not sweep the entire house and look under every piece of furniture within the house until she finds the one coin? And will she not be more joyous and celebrate more about the one coin than the 9 that she already had? And so I'm guessing that as Jesus, because he continued to tell another parable, just parable after parable, and so that in this, Jesus knows that their hearts are still hard and turned away from the teaching that he is trying to give them. And so he goes into an even deeper parable, one of the longer parables that we see in the Bible, and it's the parable of the prodigal son. And everybody, I'm going to say everybody, but if you've been in a church any amount of time, especially if you spent Sunday school or youth ministry in church, then you know the parable of the prodigal son. And so if you're new today and this is your first time, maybe you haven't even heard a message before, this is in Luke. Luke is one of the synoptic gospels, and that's just basically a fancy way of saying that Luke talked to a bunch of people who knew and walked with Jesus and gathered firsthand information from them, put it in this letter so that he could give it to somebody so that they would know who Jesus was and everything that he did, and it would be a record of that. And so in those Gospels, there's 4 of them, he has the prodigal son, and this prodigal son parable is one of probably, if not the most famous parable that we see. So I don't have it all on the TV today because it would be just a lot of words, because it's a lot of verses. It's verses 11 through 32. So in 11, to illustrate the point further, Jesus told them a story, a man who had 2 sons. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. Now you have to realize during this time, it was unheard of for a son to have an inheritance before the father died. It's just something that didn't happen. It wasn't something that he would talk about. It wasn't something that he would ever say publicly, because what you would literally be saying is, Dad, I am tired of waiting for you to die. When are you going to leave this and leave this world and leave me your wealth? I want it now. I don't want to wait anymore. And then on top of that, during that culture, it was the custom that the firstborn son would get 2/3. In this scenario, 2 sons, that the firstborn would get 2/3 of the property, and then the other son would get 1/3. And here he is, and he splits it in half and gives the son half. And so not only does his father capitulate to this outrageous and offensive ask and requirement and desire that he has, but on top of that, he goes beyond what the son should get and gives him half instead of 1/3. And so now we see that these listeners who are listening, everybody would be judging this prodigal son so harshly, would be condemning him, be saying that he is lost, and all the verbiage that you could imagine with somebody who could be so daring and so rude to this obviously wealthy, loving, and good father. How dare he make such a request? And so in verse 13 we see, it says this, a few days later, this younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land. And the Bible goes on to say that he wasted all of his money on wild living, and then a famine came, and then here's the prodigal son. He finds himself broke, and he's having to find a job, and he goes to work for a pig farmer. And then he says that he's feeding the pigs, and he's so hungry and starving so badly that he begins to desire to have the rotten, spoiled pig food. They didn't go get pig food at the local, a local feed store. It was basically the rotten scraps gathered by different farms, go to farms and get scraps. And so this prodigal son's desiring to eat these things. And so now you have to realize that everybody there is again placing all this judgment. The lowest of the low in society would have been a pig farmer. Pigs were considered unclean. And so for him to, pig farmers, they were never considered clean. They couldn't be a part of worship. They couldn't go into the synagogue. They couldn't be a part of God's kingdom because they were considered unclean. And here's this prodigal son. Not only is he daring and rude and almost murderous towards his father, but he's also wasted all his wealth on wild living. And here he is feeding pigs, the lowest of the low of the low. And he has this moment, and it says it in verse 17. He says, when he finally came to his senses. How many of us have had that moment? I know I have. And if you today are serving God and have a relationship with him, then you've had that moment as well where you came to your senses and realized how lost and how ridiculous and in many ways ignorant and in many ways evil and conceited and prideful and selfish. I can continue to use adjectives and words, but we've all had that moment, just like this prodigal son. And so here, he's trying to display that the son has this moment, and he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am, dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant. The son realizes how sinful he is in this moment. He realized he sinned against his father. Not only has he sinned against his father, but he says sinned against heaven. He sinned against every standard that is in place in heaven and under the heavens. Every type of sin he could possibly commit, he realizes that he is guilty of all of them. And so he knows that it is better to be judged by his father than it is to continue to exist out of his father's kingdom. And so he prepares himself to go to his father, and he prepares for judgment. I remember one time, AJ, I think it was about the 5th grade, he came home and just really nonchalantly just started talking. And he goes, hey, Dad, I got in trouble at school today. But don't worry. I can't remember what it was. But he said, don't worry. I've already talked to the teacher, and I've told the teacher that behavior isn't acceptable and that I'm not going to do that anymore. And he goes, I think it's because I haven't been getting enough sleep. So I'm going to start going to bed earlier so I'm not tired so that I act better at school. So everything is fine. Don't worry about it. I don't have to get in trouble because I did this. And that is basically what the prodigal son is doing in this situation. The Bible says he's preparing a speech to go to his father to ask for forgiveness, rehearsing that speech over and over in his mind. Everybody's done it. Anybody who's ever been in trouble or done anything, broke anything in your house, anybody ever broke something of your mom's, and just panic just hits everybody that was there, and trying to figure out how they can soften the blow and not be punished at the level that they think is coming. And so verse 20 says this, so he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, the father saw him coming, and listen to this, filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I'm no longer worthy of being called your son. But his father said to his servants, quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. Now you have to realize that all this means, it means that he has the wealth of his father again because he has the robe, because that represented the wealth. He has authority because he gave him a ring. And back then, the ring was a symbol of authority. So he is given directly, once he sees him, he's given the authority of the Father again. And then he says, give sandals for his feet, which is protection from the hard things in the earth and the difficulty in the earth. And so right away, the father sees the son far off, and he has compassion, and he's filled with love, and he immediately reestablishes him as a full son in his sonship and all the inheritance. He is once again an heir to everything that happened, as if everything that he had done before was removed. Now, there's a book that Chip Ingram wrote on parenting. I think it's called Raising Children in a Disastrous World, or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. But one of the things he says in there is that sometimes you have to surprise your children with ridiculous grace. And there's been moments as a parent where my kids have done something, and I know in their minds they're thinking, it's over. It's over. Dad is going to get me. Like, it is like they're just literally panicking with fear, knowing that what they did is like the ultimate rule breaker. It's not like a little tiny rule, it's the ultimate rule. And they're just waiting for me to just come in and take everything that they love and set it on fire before them, which is, an extreme thought, but every kid has had that. And in those moments, as a parent, I have used this as this opportunity to show extreme grace, that whenever they know punishment is coming, without a doubt, that I show them grace, mercy, and love in that moment. And why do we do that? Because we see here that this father, this good father, this perfect father, has done the same thing. The son has done the ultimate things, the ultimate no-nos, the ultimate sins, and this ultimate lost life, and this ultimate rejection of a loving father. And here he is reestablished immediately. So now Jesus has everybody's attention, because the sinners are like, oh my goodness, we can have this. I love this story. And the Pharisees, they're upset because just like that, the son gets reestablished, and then the disciples are like, what on earth is going on here? And so everybody is attentive to what is happening. And then it goes on to talk about the older son, and it says, meanwhile, the older son talked to the father, and he was angry, and he said, I have always been here and always done what you wanted, and you have never once given me a fattened calf. And a fattened calf was a big deal then. It was only reserved for the highest honors and the highest banquets. And so he's like, you've never given me that. You've never done these things that you've done for the son that went and wasted your wealth, that insulted you at this deepest level and wasted your wealth. And now here you are, giving them all these good things. And I've been here all these years doing everything the right way and saying the right things and doing everything you say. And this isn't fair. And he was angry. And verse 20 says the older brother was angry and wouldn't go in. His father came out and begged him. This good father begged his son. Instead of that moment where he could have been harsh with his son, where he could have said, son, you're missing the point of what I'm trying to do here. And then he says he begged him to come, but he replied, verse 29, all these years I've slaved for you, never once refused a single thing you told me. And in all that time, you never gave me even one goat for a feast with my friends. Yet the son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes. You celebrate by killing the fattened calf. His father said to him, look, dear son, you have always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found. Because this father was about the reconciliation of the relationship of his son, and his heart and true desire is that his children would exist in his kingdom and enjoy all that it had, but beyond that, enjoy this perfect back and forth relationship with the sons and the father. So I'm sure by now that you know the youngest son is the lost, and that the sinner is the youngest son is the sinner and the unclean. And so that's going to be who's identifying. And the brother is the religious, a long-time bitter saint, the Pharisee, and the father, of course, is God. He just wants his family together. And everybody loves the prodigal son in this story, because we've all been the prodigal son, and everybody loves the idea of not having consequences for your actions. And see, sometimes we'll hear a sermon about the older brother. In fact, it's a growing fad right now to have a sermon about the other older brother, because so often we can become a person who is the older brother, the brother that has made it about himself and not about the Father, that being in his Father's presence and kingdom wasn't enough for him, that somehow he sacrificed, but his sacrifice was more valuable than not ruining his life through sin. And we often get into this thinking that God somehow owes us. What an absurd point of view. But even in my own life, whenever I talk about this and say this about the older brother and how we think how ridiculous it is, how many times have I myself prayed a prayer where I was like, God, you owe me. I've been faithful. I've done this. I didn't do this when others were. I was faithful to the church. I was faithful to my pastor. Now I expect my reward. And how ridiculous it is. But any time that we fail to understand how good of a Father we serve, then that is going to be the result. I grew up thinking that my dad didn't love me. That was my thought. Even today, as a 43-year-old man, I'm still not sure. I don't know. I can't answer for him, and he's not here to answer for himself. And so I'm not going to sit here and just hammer on my dad. But that had an impact on my perception of God. Whenever I was a teenager, I would go back and forth between a relationship with God and then my relationship with the world, that I would go back between this tension between the world and between God, because in my mind, God was just waiting for me to mess up so that he could punish me and I could face the consequences of that sin, that God was literally just hovering over me and waiting to knock me down a notch every time I made a mistake. And so what that led to when I was an older teenager and a young man and eventually 18 is I just thought that being a Christian was impossible. It was impossible to live a perfect life. It was impossible to achieve the standards that was set, that you would read in the Bible or hear from a pastor. And so I just got tired of feeling this condemnation and this guilt and this shame that I couldn't live up to the standards that I viewed God wanted in my life. The result of that is my relationship with God ended whenever I was 18, and I spent, a little bit before 18, and I spent 4 years basically just trying to find out what the world had to offer. What I pictured, just getting rid of the burdens of all these standards and all these rules that God had, and I was tired of feeling judged and shame and condemnation in my life. And so I went out and I tried to find every avenue I could to fulfill that place in my heart that was missing because I had walked away from God. And after 4 years of trying everything I could think of, 4 years of doing everything that I could think of, I had that moment where I came to my senses. And even after I believed, even after I was saved and believed and realized I had misunderstood who God was, even then in those early stages and early years, I believed that I was in a performance-based kingdom. That because of what I did or what I was doing or who I was and my purity and my holiness is what decided my place in the kingdom. But what we see here in this parable is that it is the Father that decides our place in the kingdom. It is our Father that decides what we have. It is our Father that decides what authority and protection and what wealth that we have. It is our Father in heaven who decides these things. And one of the things that happened that gave me really the purest look that I could have of how God feels about me is the first time that I beheld my baby girl whenever she was born. And the first time that I held her in my arms, I could feel an instant growth of love in my heart, a supernatural moment. I suddenly realized I could love beyond what I could ever imagine I could. And in that moment, I was instantly taken to how God viewed me, and it changed my life. And it changed how I viewed myself. And it changed how I viewed God, because I had that moment where I realized that I'm not going to hover over my children waiting to defeat them and waiting to hit them with a switch on the back of the legs every time they make a mistake, that's not who God is. that he desires good things for us. And in that moment when we repent, it is over, it is gone, and he welcomes us back with open arms. That is who our Father is. And even beyond that, when AJ was born and he couldn't yet survive on his own, he was born early, so he needed some breathing help, and he was in the hospital, and just this deep, overwhelming concern that I had, and this realization that I would literally, in my life, to make sure that his would continue. That I would end my life if I knew that would be what it took to make sure that he was okay and that he didn't suffer and that he was healed. And even in that moment, I realized again how much God loves and values us, how painful it was to send his son Jesus to this earth to suffer for the identity of man for 33 years and all the issues of man and all this barrage of temptation, and then ultimately to die this shameful death on a cross. How much more does our Father love us than what we imagine? And that's what we have to realize, is that we serve a loving Father, that he's not just this God who is anxious to judge us and wanting us to pay for every single sin, that all it takes is for us to re-enter his kingdom, and there he is with arms wide open. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 11, it says this: "If you then, evil, sinful by nature, as you are, know how to give good and advantageous gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven, perfect as he is, give what is good and advantageous to those who keep on asking him?" And so I don't know where everybody is today who is listening. Maybe you had the best father you could ever imagine, like my wife and my sister-in-laws and my mom. And maybe he's not here anymore. Maybe he's in heaven now. Or maybe you had a terrible father like me who never really showed you love or concern. Or maybe you had a dad that was just back and forth. Or maybe you don't even know who your dad is. Or maybe you had a great dad and he's still with you, but you're apart. I don't know, whatever the story might be. But one of the things I do know about today, that no matter where you're at, no matter where your struggle is, no matter what you're dealing with today, that you have a good and perfect Father waiting for you with arms open. He wants to place all his wealth on you with a robe, that he wants to give you 40 of his kingdom with that ring, and that he wants you to be protected from this harshness and the hardness of this earth with those sandals. That is the type of God and the type of Father that we have available to us every day. And so as us dads and those who are spiritual fathers and those who are wanting to be a father, just know that no matter what your example was, that we have the highest and most perfect example that we could ever want or ever need. And that in every situation, we can look to the Father, and no matter how bad we mess up, and no matter how far we stray, that as soon as we turn our face back to him, he's going to see us from a long way off, and he's going to have compassion, and he is going to love us, and he is going to celebrate that we are home.
If you're a dad, you're not afraid to work hard.
Never give up.
Never compromise.
And the best dads always look for ways to get better.
I'm looking for something to energize me.
I'm looking for something to push me further.
And I'm looking for something to go with these nachos.
Dad Fuel, the energy drink designed just for dads.
So I can finish the fight.
So I can finish the race.
So I can finish mowing the lawn. And later on, I might watch some golf.
The fuel dads need to do the things dads do.
Climb the highest peak.
Go the furthest distance.
Check the scores. Read the newspaper. Give amazing relationship advice. Why are you crying? You should really talk to your mother about that.
Dad Fuel comes loaded with taurine, ginseng, and 100% of your daily recommended value of Hi Hungry, I'm Dad.
I start every morning with the 4 Ds. Devos, donuts, Dad Fuel, down blanket. Breakfast of champions, baby.
Now available in 4 bold flavors. Original orange, Grow Model raspberry, Grow Master mango, and I thought I told you to take out the garbage grape.
You can't touch my passion.
You can't touch my drive.
And you definitely can't touch my thermostat. No way.
So whether you're thirsty for victory
Or just plain thirsty. No, seriously, it's empty. Can I get another one?
Dad Fuel.
Because I am fearless.
Because I am unstoppable.
Because the players on TV aren't gonna yell at themselves.
Come on! Throw the ball!